So now I'd like to introduce our final panel of the conference. They will explore how policies and programs are impacting students' trajectories to and through higher education. With an eye towards building a future-ready Texas, these innovative solutions are impacting how students prepare for, access, and navigate college. It's my pleasure to introduce to you all our moderator for this panel, whom you might recognize, Dr. Wynne Rosser, Commissioner of Higher Education. As Commissioner of Higher Education, Dr. Rosser provides statewide leadership and oversees budget and policy for the world's 8th largest economy. With a distinguished career bringing cross-sector collaborators together to advance shared goals, Dr. Rosser is recognized for his steadfast commitment to improving outcomes for all Texans. Prior to joining the coordinating board, Dr. Rosser served as president and CEO of the TLL Temple Foundation and chief executive of the Greater Texas Foundation, as well as in faculty, staff, and senior administrative roles within Texas higher education. Joining Commissioner Rosser for this panel will be Representative Terry Wilson, who represents House District 20 and serves as chair of the House Committee on Higher Education. He is committed to expanding vocational education opportunities for all students so they can graduate with a degree and be college and job ready. Dr. William Sarata has served as president of the El Paso Community College District since 2012, leading the institution to record growth in dual credit and early college high school enrollment, as well as significant gains in student retention and graduation, particularly among first-generation and Hispanic students. Dr. Julie Filley is the 6th president of the University of Texas at Tyler. She also serves as board chair of UT Health East Texas. A professor of medicine and board certified in internal, pulmonary, and critical care medicine, Dr. Filley served as UT Tyler's executive vice president for health affairs following the 2021 merger of UT Tyler and UT Health Science Center at Tyler, which created a single integrated university. Please join me in giving our panel a warm welcome to the stage.
I have to thank our 16-year-old for the walk-on music. Panic at the Disco is not on my playlist. But when we were talking about the conference and this session title, From Ideas to Impact, talking about a vision for a preferred future, he said, "Oh, high hopes." And so the song talks about having high hopes, an individual talking about, kind of being, having to have persistence and grit and tenacity. So high hope. We have high hopes. We have high hopes as a state for this economy. We have high hopes for individual students. And we know those individual students and their parents have high hopes too. We know that 80% of Texas students and their families believe higher education is essential for the student's future. The song goes on to talk about having a vision for the future as well. And we have a vision. We have a vision that more Texans are educated, and not only educated and earning credentials, but earning credentials of value and a credential that matters in the Texas economy that is the 8th largest in the world. We had one example just previously on the panel, but there's lots of good work going on across the state. The challenge is we need more and more of it to ensure that more Texans, again, are educated to higher levels than we've ever done in the past. So we're going to talk some today with 3 leaders, a legislative leader, two leaders that work deeply in their communities and their regions to move from ideas to impact. We're going to start, we started yesterday with the student panel, and so we're going to work in some of our own student experiences today as we get started, kind of reflect back on what it was like when our student journey. How did we end up here on this stage? And so for me, my dad was a high school ag teacher in rural East Texas. And I knew at the age of 11 that I wanted to get a PhD. I can remember the spot I was standing. And so there's this guy named Randall Grooms. He was a beef cattle specialist. And he got to go all over the world because he was a Texas A&M Extension Service beef cattle specialist. And I saw the way Dr. Grooms interacted with people and how people treated him and what he got to do and the thing. I was like, I want to do that because of the network that my dad had. So there are these opportunities for one individual to make a difference. We heard from the students yesterday kind of about what can a single caring person on a campus do? How do we create aspiration among our students and what examples can we give? So, fast forward on, I end up, getting, or ultimately earning associates and a bachelor's and a doctorate. And there were certainly individuals along the way, like Gary Byers and Howard Hesby and Joe and Chris Townsend, that Alvin Lark, that made sure the kid whose high school graduating class was smaller than his freshman chemistry class felt at home in a large university. And so again, I was thinking yesterday, gosh, how do you scale that? Well, you scale it because of people like you in the room who are working hard every day on your institutions. I think one of the things that stood out to me yesterday was just how much it matters to belong, feel like you're part of a family, and that you're at home on your campus. So you can't scale that unless we all believe and understand and invest in the students and creating those opportunities, like what Danush was talking about at the Najim Center, feeling like he belonged. So for me, I guess the thing that I think about is I knew I belonged because of Randall Grooms. Whether or not I actually did it or not, I don't know, but I knew there was a place for me to go. And then when I got to the institution, there were faculty members that made sure I belonged. And so one of my big reflections, Julie, Dr. Philly,
yes,
when you think about your journey, what are some moments that stand out?
Well, first of all, I'm so glad to be here with you. I also grew up in East Texas, and ironically, my dad worked with Randall Grooms at the Texas A&M Research Center in Overton, Texas. That's where I grew up. I went to a very small public school, graduated with a class of 18, and knew from pretty early age I wanted to be in healthcare. I just felt called, I felt committed, but didn't know a soul in the healthcare industry. I didn't grow up going to the doctor very much. I was fortunately healthy, so were my 4 other siblings. And so started to think about how could I break into healthcare, and decided I really wanted to become a nurse. And I still remember being in high school when my mother said to me, this was back in the time, and you guys remember this, you're ordering all the catalogs and you're dreaming about going to college. And so I would order these catalogs and mark up these schedules for myself. And my mother said, well, really, it sounds like what you want to do is go to medical school. And up until that point, I thought my best chances to be associated with physicians would be to marry one. And I changed my mind that day and thought, I'm going to go for this. I ended up going ahead and going to nursing school, and then went to medical school, and thought my life would be complete if I could just be a doctor the rest of my life. But when I moved back to East Texas 13 years ago, what I realized about our rural communities is we have really connected people, and that there's Randall Grooms all over our state that are investing in people because they can succeed. And I just decided to change my trajectory again and make it my life's work to help others achieve higher education, to what changed my life and my siblings' life. And I've been in this presidency role for a year and a half. It's restored my faith in the future of our state and our country.
Dr. Serrata, a moment that stands out for you, experience.
Thank you, Commissioner. What an honor to be with you all this morning and to be on stage with wonderful colleagues and friends. So I'm the oldest of 4, born and raised in Brownsville, the southern tip of Texas. Neither of my parents, we have some South Texas folks. Neither of my parents had the opportunity to go to college. And so from their perspective, they wanted me to go, and being the oldest, a Hispanic young man, I did what my parents told me to do. But they had no clue what it entailed. Their point was, we just don't want you to work as hard as we have to work to make ends meet. And so went off to College Station almost 40 years ago. It goes in the blink of an eye. And struggled as a first-generation college student, not understanding the services that were available to me, not understanding the opportunities to utilize those services. And I struggled, and so I ended up in the Vice President of Student Affairs office, Dr. Koldis. And Dr. Koldis made a huge impact on me. At the time, A&M was large, not nearly as large as it is now, but 40,000 students. That year, my freshman class was the largest freshman class in the nation, over 7,700 students. And Dr. Koldis took the time to study me and understand me before I walked into his office. And he said, William, tell me about what, the fact that he even knew my name, knew what I was studying, and helped me. That changed my entire career. That changed my aspirations, that changed my major. That made me determine I'd like to do something similar to Dr. Koldis. And that was my goal, was to be a vice president of student affairs and enrollment management. And I was fortunate to reach that in 2005 and was very happy being the vice president of student affairs. And Shirley Reed, my president at South Texas, would say, well, William, when you're a president, and I said, no, Dr. Reed, I'm very happy being the vice president of student affairs and enrollment management. But it was all Dr. Koldis who shifted everything for me, and the fact that he knew who I was, he was willing to help me. And I thought, well, and I was also savvy. I went to the library and asked for the budget and saw Dr. Koldis' salary. And I said, well, I could live on that. Live on that.
You had a house too.
You had a house on campus, the only vice president of student affairs with a home on campus, exactly. But it was an opportunity to say, I can help other people reach the dreams that they have and make a living out of that.
And that, so, I have a John Koldis story too. But that story plays out hundreds and thousands of times over a career. So again, you scale it one student at a time in that way. Colonel, Chairman,
Yes. Thank
what
you.
stands out to you?
Thank you. Thank you all for this conference and inviting me. I tell you, it's been such an eye-opener. And let me tell you, since what I thought I was going to say today has transitioned after I've sat in these forums and these panels and so forth. Dr. Rosser, Commissioner, I have to say, I questioned your judgment inviting a politician with a mic on the stage. Fellow panel members, I see that I have 50 minutes and 16 seconds. How much time do they give y'all? No, out of seriousness, I realize that Dr. Rosser's secret weapon is Pat in the back corner who can turn the mic off. So you're all safe here today. No, thank you. I will tell you, Dr. Bailey, I'm one of those students, or was one of those students that frankly is where a good number of our students are today. Absolutely despise education, didn't see the purpose of it in high school. My family was very simple. Both of my parents worked extremely hard. And I will say that I wanted to go as far away from education as I possibly can. You know, at age 15 with a great job, transitioning 16 soon, and you're making so much money in the oil patch that, why do you need college? And so it was two very lovely and wonderful people, James Addy at Odessa High School, who was my vocational teacher, and Miss Louise Boyd. Miss Louise Boyd was wonderful. She was an English teacher, and she realized I couldn't speak it. But she was a very, very, very patient person. You know, you couldn't cheat in her class because at a young age she was involved in an accident where one eye would look this way and the other eye would look that way, and so there's no way you never knew whether she was looking at you or not. But she took such a profound interest in me. Matter of fact, those two teachers basically rescued me because I quit high school. I was quitting. And I was very independent, where I didn't need to live at home either. Yes, I had loving parents, but it's one of those things when you get a lot of money in your pocket, but you have no direction, you can aim in other directions. And both of them convinced me to come back, go into the BOCA program. Y'all remember that? Some of y'all that are out there. And basically learn trades. And James Addy made sure that he didn't let me stay in one trade. He kept me busy because he knew I was ADD, so he kept challenging me. Fast forward, I realized that I could just simply, through learning the trades, stay in the oil patch and make mega money, but I realized that, frankly, I probably wasn't going to live to see age 21. It's very fast living. There's a lot of distractions out there, and it's a very dangerous business. So I decided not to be so dangerous and decided to join the Army. Look where that got me. But in joining the Army, I had a buddy named David Sickles that we were sitting at Taco Villa for all you West Texans out there. Yes, I knew I'd get Taco Villa pitch there, and under a bean burrito with extra cheese and sour cream at 49 cents, you couldn't beat that, right, Doctor? But we both decided, yeah, you're right. Next door, there's an Army recruiter. And we went in there and talked to them. And next thing you know, we were on our way to El Paso. But escaping West Texas, I landed in an Army that essentially said during the Ronald Reagan era, that either it's up or out. And guess what? In the Army, while I was trying to escape education, Army's all about education at every grade. At every grade. Not just going to a non-commissioned officer, going to the NCO academies, but, you know, guess what? At some point in time, they give you an evaluation and they say, guess what? You'll never make sergeant major. So I decided to become an officer. Yeah, some of y'all get that. So in becoming an officer, obviously, you have to have a degree. I had another person take interest in me, Brigade Commander, a gentleman named Hartzog, look it up, it's very impressive, that took interest in me. And next thing you know, I was on my way to West Point until he got the great idea of, hold it, you're a Texas boy. There's a senior military college named Texas A&M just down the road. Now, I will tell you that landing at Texas A&M, basically I realized the danger of the occupation by that time, and I realized you get hurt really easily, so I need to make sure I got a valued credential. That would be the business college, understanding that I could get a job when I got out of the military. Lo and behold, one thing to another, to cut this a little bit short, never did I realize that West Texas Odessa boy who ran from education, didn't even want to complete high school, would essentially be the chief of C4SR in the Department of the Army with over 98 subsystems as a systems engineering and integrator. And yes, as a business major, as an infantryman, that's what I did. And in that row, I realized that when we were award those large multi-million to multi-billion contracts, well over 98 of them, when I would outbrief the source selections and I had industry in front of me, I would ask a question: why would you compete with foreign suppliers and foreign partners? And it was two things. It was because we didn't have the workforce and the skill set, the quantities that we needed, and we did not have the manufacturing capacity. Now, I will tell you, that is extremely concerning. But once again, the good Lord put me in another place once I left the military, and understanding that, I had to pay my penance by being a politician, and I'm sorry for that. But once again, he put me in a place in higher education where I could actually do something in terms of the lack of workforce nationally, as well as our manufacturing capacity. So I have a lot of mentors and a lot of schools over time. Thank you.
Appreciate it, Chairman. And so that, the through line of just those caring adults, whether it be a parent, faculty members, and a boss who saw something in you. And you are a great advocate for higher education. I appreciate your leadership as chairman. I want to talk some about policy momentum and how policy momentum turns into impact and practice in the field. So, Chairman, coming out of the last legislative session, some really big substantive policy wins for higher ed, or anything stand out for you as a thing that removes barriers to higher education so that we can develop that skilled workforce you were talking about?
Well, thank you for the question, and I promise I will not talk about NIL. Come on, folks, work with me here. No, I will tell you that, coming into the legislature and seeing in my first session, I was asking the question, where are we in higher education? This is in 2017. I eventually got introduced in my second session as Article 3 chairman, that is public education, higher education budget, the appropriation side of it, and learned more and more. The good news is that we have some big thinkers. And also that you're not relying on the legislature to come up as the big thinker. I congratulate the Texas Higher Education Coordination Board. I congratulate Governor Abbott, and I congratulate all those who are out there in this audience, because I know it was pulling your heads together to come up with key policy. Key policy in terms of how we're going to fund education, but also making sure that there is data and metrics in terms of how it's going to produce. And that didn't turn overnight. The brilliance of bringing the tri-agency together, the Texas Workforce Commission, the Texas Higher Education Coordination Board, and the Texas Education Agency, I realized immediately that it wasn't as grim and dark as what I thought it was transitioning from the military into the legislature. That there are those big minds that are actually thinking and understanding. You know, I kind of get a little irritated with the whole, you know, we went from K to 12 to now K to 14, K to 16, to K to 18. The bottom line is no, it is all overlapping. And it starts as young as that person has an interest, driven by those who, you know, people who are going to influence us, be it a teacher, be it a parent, be it whoever. But to see that the policy through the larger strategy, building a Texas future, is that, I will tell you, I've been all over the United States looking at research institutions, because that was part of my job, was to award research grants on certain technical readiness levels on research and development. But to understand the education system, you could tell in terms of when you went into these universities and so forth of who was supplying their professors and the students that around them in terms of what they were attention. But to get after things that is just barriers, such as what we did this past session, what I did was basically brought home what y'all came up with, and that is 2314, 4909. If you look at the House bill, Senate Bill 2314 essentially was, well, Mr. Perez, Mr. Greggs, I'm not going to give it as good of a shout out as you did, but My Texas Futures and the direct admissions process. Those were y'all's ideas. We just brought it home, but it removes that barrier to give that pathway so that Terry Mack Wilson in Odessa High School at age 15 would have already had the opportunity to see a career path. The tools that our mentors need to have to be able to not just tell you, because I don't know about you, I'm a visual learner. I have to see it. And I have to see that there's something that strikes that fancy. But then to go the extra step and the tenacity to say, guess what? We're going to have Senate Bill 2231, House Bill 4912, I believe, basically free application week. Two barriers: the pathway, understanding it, visualizing it, and of course the application process. The application process, which is a barrier, because frankly, just helping my two boys trying to figure their pathway, you have to go through a lot of websites, looking through a lot of ways, and then you have to kind of figure it out. And when you look at the application process and realize the cost and the fees associated with that application, it's policies such as that that really gets us down the road and are effective and meaningful today. So thank you all.
Appreciate it, Chairman. I know Andrew's here too. We appreciated the opportunity to work with your office on those items and others. Dr. Serrata, Dr. Philly, you again are kind of deeply embedded in regions, but you exist within this, or you operate within this larger state policy framework. When you think about the work, Dr. Serrata, in El Paso, where you're a 2-year institution partnering with a 4-year institution, also you have the Health Science Center there with Texas Tech. How does policy enable you to be more effective in educating and building a talent-strong Texas?
No, I think the policy levers that we're fortunate to have folks like Chair Wilson pulling those levers, and they were incredibly useful. I mean, you look back at a couple of sessions ago with House Bill 8, which I'll touch on shortly, but if you look at the levers and you see where the state was headed already, so I'm going to go back, and you saw a shift in the academy towards more workforce programs. And we've seen this shift. I'll go back to one of your previous roles, Commissioner, as well as I saw John Fitzpatrick in the audience. And when you all formed a learning tour of Singapore years back, almost a decade ago, and from different regions of the state, we went and learned And that shifted our master plan in El Paso significantly, that we doubled down and really focused on workforce programs and STEM related programs. And we saw those starting to grow before the pandemic. And then during the pandemic, students had choices. They could either go straight into the field and work at service level jobs paying $15, $16, $17 an hour, or choose to go to education. And they made much wiser choices of saying, if I'm going to go into the academy, I'm going to go into a program that's going to pay off, that there's going to be a job at the end. And we saw all of the workforce programs grow during the pandemic. Academic transfer programs fell. Now, all of them are coming back now, fortunately, but it's because of policy levers that people like Chairman Wilson pulled that really have focused and have directed students and the award systems within the system of higher education in Texas to be able to capitalize on those, do what's right for the student, for the community, and then the institution will be rewarded. And so we see those and we continue to move on those and continue to move in those directions. And students are very, very savvy. They know what they want to study and they want to ensure that there's a job at the end of that. And whether it's partnering with Marathon in welding, whether it's partnering with the Hospitals of Providence in all of the nursing and allied health programs, or whether it's partnering with UTEP to develop an engineering academy so that they're co-enrolled at the college and the university, they're calculus ready, not college algebra ready, they're calculus ready, and they move in that pathway along to be able to graduate and go between both institutions, being accepted at both.
Dr. Philly, in Tyler, East Texas, what does it look like for you?
Yeah, I think it looks the same. And I think we all suffer from the same challenges. I know during COVID, and by the way, by background, I'm a pulmonary critical care physician. And if COVID taught me one thing, it's no one's coming for us. We have to produce our people to take care of our people in healthcare, but this translates across every sector. And I enjoyed the session so much this morning because those tools are applicable to all of us. But in education, I feel very supported by the state at this point in time. I know there's a lot of changes. I know there's a lot of questions about higher ed, but I don't think we've ever seen a time where we can pivot and we feel more supported to pivot to meet the needs really of the people of this state. And so just, as an example of pathways, we kind of changed our thinking at UT Tyler. I'll give you an example in nursing of it's yours to lose instead of yours to gain. The workforce needs it. We need good, compassionate, kind, caring, well-trained and qualified nurses. And so we've started reaching down into our junior highs and high schools to say, here's the path. And you're automatically admitted. It's yours to lose. Let us help you. But when we recognize that the student, this is not the right pathway for them, instead of letting them continue on alone, we try to pivot and figure out where is the best path. And that's why these collaborations and partnerships with our community colleges are so vital, because not everyone belongs at our institution at the beginning, but many of them can achieve that as they move through. And so I think thinking about things differently, how fast we produce the workforce, what does that mean? Do we have to take summers off? Can we go year round? We've really tried to change our thinking, and we've done it pretty quickly.
So we'll talk about House Bill 8 and investment in just a moment, Dr. Serrata. What other investments from the policy standpoint, the state standpoint, what other investments empower you and your colleagues in El Paso to do the engineering academy work? What are we doing there from a policy standpoint that's helping you pull off some of these things that are really pretty incredible?
Well, I think that, the co-enrollment is part of the reward system in the state of Texas. And so we have co-enrollment programs that we never thought of in that fashion. We never thought, oh, well, if we develop this program, then we can be rewarded from the state. It was just a matter of doing what was right for the student, for the population and within the greater El Paso area. But now we see those kinds of policies that actually reward the institution for doing what's right for the student, again, for the community, and move forward. I think that those are incredibly important. I think the additional aid has been game changing as well. The fact that students will receive, that are on Texas grant, you have the transfer piece now where they can qualify for Texas grant even if they didn't start at the university. I think those are incredibly helpful. 84% of my student body is on some type of aid, 98% is on Pell or scholarship. And so those are game changers for the student. To be able to go from the college to the university and retain their aid is a game changer.
I just put Julie or Dr. Philly on the spot. It just struck me that she was talking about the workforce and healthcare. The state's invested pretty tremendously in residency training for physicians. As a former leader of a medical school, can you talk to them about what that policy enabled you to do?
Well, I am, one of the things I'm most proud of for my part of the state is we started a medical school with the support of people like you, Chairman, and others to really meet the needs of our region. So we started a medical school in 2021, 40 students a year. Most of them have geographic ties to our region. And the importance of residency training, I cannot tell you how important this is. So for those in the room that don't know, you go to medical school for 4 years. You're not ready to be a physician in the workplace at all. You have to do on-the-job training, which you get paid for at least a minimum of 3 years typically to do primary care. Sometimes surgery, it's 5 years. In my case, I did 6 years. We know that the vast majority of people stay where they have done this type of residency training. And the state has invested so much in developing these programs, and that's called Graduate Medical Education, or GME. So just as an example, I know my statistics at my own institution. So the coordinating board's invested over time, $20 million in our region to build these programs. But today, over the past 5 to 7 years, we went from having about 30 physicians in training to now almost 300 physicians in training. And over 50% of those stay in our region. And our region is 32 to 35 counties, roughly the size of West Virginia, and many of the counties have no providers, and our providers that have been there are retiring. So this type of investment made right now is enormous for our state, and it's happening all over the state. This is something we should be really proud of as Texans.
So again, Chairman, thank you for your leadership on that one item alone. So when we think about this larger topic of investment, Chairman, are there things that stand out to you, again, that remove barriers, that demonstrate the state's commitment to higher education?
Well, funding is key and foremost, is it not? And I know every one of y'all are living through the dream right now. And Dr. Bailey, thank you for your kind words, Dr. Serrata, in terms of, you feel as if the confidence of the state is there for y'all. And the bottom line is it's not hard to sell the good legislation that y'all bring to us when we understand that there's one, data behind it, and two, that when we're writing the legislation or putting the legislation in place that we know that there's a metric so it's measurable and we understand where we are and where we're going. Now, I will tell you, let's just look at the investment piece. Sir, you mentioned the Texas grant. Think about it. Over the biennium, $1.23 billion. You heard me correctly, $1.23 billion. Let me just add a couple more figures here. The Texas Educational Opportunity Grant, $333 million. The Texas Equalization Grant, $232 million. The Texas, well, let me rephrase this. The Mr. Neil Adams and Bob Gates Texas Armed Services Scholarship Program, $20 million. Because we know that those who are going to serve our country that are going to be in the leadership position, we know that we want to put them in a place in our great institutions where they can lead our soldiers, sailors, airmen, Marines. I can go on in terms of other grants and so forth, but when you look at it holistically, it's just slightly over $2 billion. So there's the investment side of it. But when you have a strategy associated with, as you had mentioned earlier, House Bill 8 from the previous session, and then the cleanup legislation, I wouldn't call it cleanup legislation, Mr. Martinez. You'd probably say that at the end of the day, we just made it better.
That's right.
In that we are enabling and empowering the Texas Workforce Commission, Higher Education Coordination Board, and the Texas Education Agency to not be placed in silos, but as they choose to do, work together to make sure that they can combine grants and resources so that they can understand that the demands out there can be fulfilled through the facilities, the tools, the teachers. And oh, by the way, it's just not in higher education. It's higher education installed within public education. And hopefully it starts at the 7th and 8th grade level, if not earlier, in terms of mentorship and those tools. So the continued investments in those and transitioning to policies. I'll tell you, sometimes our statutes are so tight that rulemaking is decided once, and then it's held in place until the next legislative session. But to take Senate Bill 1786, which built on House Bill 8, and to sit there and say, we're going to break down those barriers and so that you can make emergency decisions. Emergency decisions not because it's an emergency, oh my gosh, pull the alarm for the water sprinklers, but it's emergency because we see opportunity and we can strike while it's hot. And I would say those are some of the sorts of things that if the legislature will continue down this road through the data that you provide, the metrics that we can enable, you will continue. This is just a starting point in my view.
Yeah, and appreciate your leadership. That aligned grant funding idea came out of a meeting you convened with Chairman Buckley, Chairman Van Dever, and you invited Brian Daniel, Chairman Daniel, Commissioner Morath, and I in to talk about what else could we do. So good idea came out of a conversation that you convened. Dr. Zarata, talk some about community college finance as an example of how state investment is empowering your work.
No, I think it was critical, and you had Community College Finance Commission. Woody Hunt chaired the commission, but that was out of the 2021 session. We go into 23, the recommendations come forward. They're looking at it not just, you had legislators, you had business folks, you had presidents and community college individuals on that, and looking at what's best for the state of Texas, taking that to the legislature, and then in today's body politic, seeing a bill pass unanimously in both houses is phenomenal. And it was all focused on the workforce and the future of the state of Texas. And let me just say that from my perspective, they're all workforce programs. Even the artist has to pay the bills. And so they're all workforce programs, and we need to treat them all as workforce programs. But that investment was phenomenal. And then the cleanup bill, as the chairman spoke to in this particular session, and ensuring that we made it better, that McLennan Community College in Waco and their transfer students that are going to Baylor primarily, that they receive credit for that. I think that those investments in higher education and the future of the state of Texas, we are the 8th largest economy, soon to be the 7th largest economy. We have to ensure that we have that talent pool so that business and industry continues to flourish in our state. And it all enhances the quality of life for our particular communities. If you have a higher educational attainment level, and I certainly appreciate the legislature seeing the investment of that and seeing that that's what's going to fuel the state to continue to move forward, to continue to the Texas miracle, continue that, ensuring that we have the resources that we need so that our future tomorrow continues to look brighter and brighter.
Dr. Philly, the governor yesterday in a video highlighted that Texas now leads the nation in R1s. So the state has invested tremendously in research. You are, again, this unique combined institution now with a university with a health science center, comprehensive university. What does the investment in research mean to you in a regional context?
So I actually, had moved back to East Texas in our region. Our health science center had heavily focused on pulmonary disease, and they were the state chest hospital, which means focused on TB, tuberculosis, and still is, and still very heavily involved in research. And so we take research seriously, obviously, at all of our institutions and our universities. Texas has, I think, 16 R1 institutions. I mean, these are heavily focused research institution. My own institution is R2, so that's the second tier, and then there's R3. I think what we're seeing right now in our state is, number one, an investment in talent. I think we're seeing resources available for your institutions to invest and retain talent across many different types of sectors. I think that we do see the state support initiatives like dementia research, cancer research. You guys know about these big programs and the $3 billion that the state's invested in these focal types of areas. But I think also nationally what we're seeing is the demand for excellence, and they're cutting our research dollars. Again, you can see the glass is half full or half empty, but this is a chance for all of our institutions to really think about what's important, what we need to say no to, and how we need to work together across party lines to really advance science for the good of our citizens. And so I think what we're trying to do in East Texas and in Tyler, we have a medical school. Thank you for mentioning that. The Health Science Center piece in relationship to the academics. So, part of my job is to decide what are the great ideas that we're going to say no to, because we either have that in our state and we don't want to be redundant, or because we need to be more of a silent partner and let someone else take the lead. And that's tough for all of us in the room. We all want it all. It's very easy for me to be on stage and say, I think my institution is to be the 17th R1 institution because it feels good. It looks great on a CV. But I think many of you are out there at institutions where you could be a part of the solution of how do we use our taxpayer dollars better? How do we serve our people in a more effective way? And what are the priorities for the state? We have some dismal statistics in my part of the world. And so our institution is going to focus on our people and on those things. And those are the types of research projects that we're going to narrow it down to.
Think how you are locally relevant, regionally relevant to the stakeholders nearest to you, and how you address the challenges of the state, but do it through the lens of your local community. You reminded me, Governor Connolly in his 1965 charge to the original coordinating board members cautioned against growth for growth's sake. And you just said it in a different way. Can't be all things to all people, limited resources. What do we do that's going to best serve the students and the people of our region? Appreciate that. The last question we wanted to explore, we started with a student panel yesterday, just think they really are a highlight to me, and having Ian on this last panel, there's so much that we could unpack from that, but we've had an opportunity to hear from current students about the vision for their future. If you were to give advice to if you could go back and give advice to yourself as a 15, 16, 17-year-old, 18, 19-year-old coming into higher ed, what advice would you give yourself today to be future ready? So knowing what you know now, what advice would you give yourself so that you'd be prepared for the future that no one can predict, but it's out there in front of us?
Well, they're going to say smarter things than I do, so I'm going to start on that one. I think there's an incredible amount of power in showing up. And, we live in a world where it's so easy. You think you could skip all the steps. You can get dual credit your way out of everything, or text a response, or not pick up the phone. And there's so many ways to skip so many different steps. But I think if I would talk to myself, I would just say be prepared for the power of investing in one-on-one relationships and showing up for your community, for your organization, and being present. I think that we're going to see some great leaders evolve over the next upcoming decades, but I think what we're going to see is these people are engaged in our society. They have a love for other people. They really believe in easing the human conditioning and being there when people need them.
Dr. Serrato?
Yeah. So I shared earlier, I went as a first-generation college student, went to College Station in the fall of '87 to be an aerospace engineer. And 6 years later, I came out of A&M with a degree in English, my native tongue. And so, I did 3 years. I did a year and a half in aero, a year and a half in civil, and then I determined that I didn't have the discipline or desire to be an engineer. But I was going into engineering because I was good at math and science, and that's what my counselors told me that I needed to do. And because, speaking to my parents, you got to get a 4-year degree and get into a field that's going to pay a worthwhile wage. And so what I tell myself and what I tell others is, in particular, the panel with Dr. Groves earlier and the students, and showing how students are working and going to school at the same time in training. It's all higher ed, it's all college. So they're going through and providing training on the non-credit side. And essentially that's been my career path. I graduated, got that degree in English, ended up working in higher education, writing enrollment reports during the day at the University of Texas at Brownsville and Texas Southmost College, and studying Shakespeare in the evening. Because I asked, what do you have to do to move up? Well, you've got to have a master's degree. A master's in what? It doesn't matter, just a master's degree. And then moving forward and being at South Texas College, and A&M's in South Texas, recruiting a cohort, and being a part of that cohort, and me voting for educational administration, because that's what I was doing. The other 9 members of the cohort voting for human resource development. So I have a PhD in human resource development. But I was 40 years old and I was still in school. And I think it's important that we see higher education as an investment, and investing in yourself and providing those opportunities for those that don't have them, and capitalizing. I also advise the audience and everyone else to take advantage of tuition reimbursement programs. I took one loan out in all of my years of education. It was my last year of my undergrad in College Station. I took a $4,000 plus loan. Everything else I was able to do because I had tuition reimbursement at each of the institutions that I was working at that helped invest in me as well. And I think it's incredibly important for people to, I am the epitome of a lifelong learner. And I think that that's important for all of us, to continue that training, to continue investing in yourself and encouraging others to invest in themselves as well. I tell our students every day, the more you learn, the more you earn, and the less likely you are to be unemployed. And the data is overwhelming. Every level of education that you go up, the unemployment rates come down and the wages go up. And I know we can find that one student who's living in mom and dad's basement that has $150,000 in loans, but that is not the data. That's an anecdote. The data is overwhelming. The more you learn, the more you earn, and the less likely you are to be unemployed.
And most Texas graduates have no debt or manageable debt, so that's pretty incredible. Chairman, something that you would advise your younger self to get your future ready?
I wish I brought a pen up here so I could take notes. Spot on. Buy Apple. Buy Apple. I hear it's some dude in his garage on the West Coast somewhere. You know, I tell you, if I could talk to Terry Mack back in the day, I'd tell him it's going to be okay. You know, our lives are revolved around opportunity and circumstances. And, you know, in my life, and thank you so much for inviting General Cuccolo yesterday. I hope you were here for it. You know, our nation's power is not the military, it's our economy. And so y'all are the ones on the front lines. Not just doing your job here and now, but how much you're reaching out to those Terry Macks back then that didn't want anything to do with education and was thinking about not even staying in school. That's where a lot of our kids are. And that's where a lot of us need to be. Because from the briefs that you all received in these panels, especially the last one, to the first one we had with the students, there is tons of opportunity. But how are they getting that message? Are there enough mentors there to be able to do it? And when you look at this world and the fact that, you know, right now they have social media and their electronic devices. Hell, all I had was a 1971 Buick Skylark with a 455 with big tires in the back and a shotgun and a rifle. It's a lot different world now, but at the same time, I will tell you that they're probably at a more depressed state than we ever were. Hell, we were so poor we didn't know we were poor. We actually go out there and we worked, and we had to do that sorts of thing. But I will tell you that you can influence those circumstances. And so each and every day, I try to insert myself where I am mentoring somebody, whether they realize it or not, be it Boy Scouts, church groups, or just simply when I'm campaigning. And let me tell you something. I never thought, I must be crazy, I never thought I would love knocking on so many doors. But you never know the opportunity arises with the person who answers it. And I will tell you that the good Lord's going to show you each and every day the opportunity, even if it's just waiting in line for that milkshake that you're not telling your spouse you're having because they have you on a diet. Just looking around and noticing that there may be some opportunity to encourage. And so with that, I would probably say, talking back to Terry Mack, I would say there were probably a lot of friends I could have brought along with me. That's a good point. Thank you.
Yes, my advice to my future self would be just understand that you live life forward and you understand it backwards.
Yeah.
And don't miss this opportunity to learn. Don't miss an opportunity to find that person who will invest in you and who will take an interest in you. And just keep growing and learning, because I think, as Dr. Sarata said, I think we all need to be lifelong learners. There's opportunities for us to pick up new skill sets along the way to ensure that we're developing, growing. I think it's probably what helps us stay healthy to do that. And so I think I had someone tell me, that's not an original statement, you live life forward, you understand it backwards. I had somebody tell me that in probably my late 30s. And if I would have known that earlier, I think I would have been less afraid to take some of the opportunities that came my way that maybe I said no to that I should have said yes to. But life's worked out well. We're all here in roles where we have an opportunity to make a difference from our own each perspective, and appreciate very much the leadership that you each provide, and not least, Dr. Philly and Dr. Haddad, not just in your regions, because you're also very involved state and nationally. Dr. Chairman Wilson, certainly, from the role as being chair of House Higher Ed, the leadership that you provide the sector, the voice that you are for the sector, we appreciate that. And I'll invite everyone in the room to thank our panelists.
Dr. Rosser, I have one comment here. I'm going to give y'all a homework assignment. I want y'all to go look at House Bill 4, House Bill 20, House Bill 120, and the 1786 cleanup. That's your homework assignment, because what that does is it gives you permission to be in your ISDs. Thank you for letting me say that.
Yeah, well, for sure. Thank y'all. So just a few things to wrap up. I want to actually pick up on the comment that Chairman Wilson made about those pieces of legislation. Commissioner Morath and I realized during the last session that those bills that start out as K-12 bills sometimes become higher ed bills. I think one of the things that's consistent that we've heard is just this opportunity to mash up K-12 and higher ed, blend learning, so appreciate the chairman calling those bills out. I want to thank everyone, those of you that have stayed in the room with us over the last day and a half. I especially want to thank the coordinating board staff. So if you join me in thanking them. Organizing this conference is just about a year-round activity, and it's no one person's full-time job, but it sure does add up to several full-time jobs. And everyone works hard. So what that means is they're doing their regular job on top of organizing this conference. And the comments have been very positive. We appreciate everything that you've said to encourage us. And I would encourage you to go to the QR code that Melissa shared earlier and give us feedback. I also want to thank the speakers. We had people come in from across the state and from out of state to share really important lessons learned with us. And so I'm appreciative of everyone joining us today. I want to make sure I highlight, I started talking about our vision for the state of Texas. I started this panel talking about our vision. We have an update of Building a Talent Strong Texas, our 10-year plan. At the 5-year mark, we've updated all the data. It was in your swag bag. So I'd encourage you to take a look at that. It's also online, and it shows the progress that we're making towards our Building a Talent Strong Texas goals. And we continue to make great progress towards overall attainment, credential value attainment, and research and development. I started yesterday, should have put one of those little carrots in there. If I'd have been thinking creatively, I would have asked somebody to do that. But so what's the verb you would put in that tagline to the conference theme? I've heard ensuring, I've heard investing, I've heard a number of words, but that could be an action commitment to go home and think, what is your individual most powerful contribution to a future-ready Texas? General Kukalo asked it different. He said, what are you going to do in this moment? We're in this moment of change. We're in this moment of opportunity. We're in this moment where we have so much Texas talent that's looking for that preferred future. And what are you going to do in this moment when you go back home? I know what I'm going to do when I go back, across the street. I'm going to look at my very messy desk and be tempted to dive right back into what I was doing, as opposed to thinking about what I could do to ensure a future-ready Texas. We heard from students yesterday, and one of the things that was most striking to me about the students and what they shared is that they did not separate their academic identity and their workforce or career identity. It all kind of came out making sense together. And so I wonder, is that a lesson for us to think about how we talk about academic and career together? And some of what we heard maybe Ian talking about earlier is how he's learning and earning at the same time, working towards a career goal. And also, I've already mentioned this, but this sense of belonging and family and home. Several of the students talked about that, and I certainly resonate, as I shared earlier, with that. The credential for that panel. I am glad Peter affirmed that even short-term credentials have wage outcomes that are meaningful in this economy. And so as we think about, as Dr. Serrata said, it's all college. You go to college for some of these shorter-term credentials, and how we help more students and more families understand the value of those shortest-term credentials. We've got to do better at that. Dr. Stafford talked about employer engagement. Certainly got a deep dive on employer engagement today. And so, again, what are we doing to understand the challenges of our region and invest resources in addressing those challenges? Garrett, the Texas Leadership in CHIPS, that we are a national leader in how we educate technicians all the way up to engineers. That's something we should celebrate. I don't know if we get ourselves enough credit for the leadership we're providing on some of these big, really important challenges to the country. The 2-year, 4-year industry collaboration, hearing that, I hope was inspiring. It's inspiring to me. And I appreciate Alyssa, and that a university can be a workforce organization. Dr. Serrata said, all the degrees are workforce degrees. And if we have that orientation of how are we connecting theoretical learning to hands-on learning, the university and HRI can be hands-on. In fact, UTMD Anderson, one of our Star Award recipients, they're being recognized for their certification programs. So an HRI awarding certificates, and Austin talked about that yesterday. I want to come back to General Kukalo and this notion and a balance between trust and autonomy and responsibility to the mission. And so, the national story is a lack of confidence in higher education. It's not the Texas story. We know students aspire. You heard the aspiration from the students that joined us here over the last 2 days. We know that 80% of students and families believe higher education is important. This year, enrollment in every sector of higher education is up over where we were going into the pandemic. 1.6 million students, public and private higher ed. That's the mission. How do we ensure more of those Texans and even more young Texans enter and succeed in higher education? The trust and autonomy go hand in glove. We've got to continue executing that mission and executing it well. Come back to what do you do in this moment? And what's your action commitment to a future-ready Texas? We have talent. We have aspiration. We've got to meet that talent and aspiration with a scope and scale that matches Texas. We've got millions of young people. We have thousands and thousands of good jobs, the 8th largest, the 7th largest economy in the world. That's the Texas story. And I think the challenge we have, the opportunity we have, is to continue writing that story because, as I've said, I think on this stage a few weeks ago, the Texas story hadn't been finished. We're not even halfway through the book. But we can continue doing our work every day to develop that story, to invest in young people, and benefit from the policy that we have, which is a pretty solid policy set for outcomes, for investment, and for removing barriers. So I hope there was something for you over the last day and a half, hopefully a lot for you. We're going to do this again next year. We invite you back, more or less same time, same place. And we want to hear from you, so we really appreciate your feedback. If you want to stay around, ask questions, talk, we'll certainly invite that for a few minutes. But mostly what I want to do is just thank you for what you do every day on your campuses, in your communities, to build a talent-strong Texas. Thanks, y'all.